Good evening, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought that I would talk and review this little video, or talk about this video, excuse me, because I found it very particularly interesting. And of course, for those of you that are into the NFL, and of course, for those of you that know which games are going to be in the next round, which of course is going to be in the divisional round now, the second round of the playoffs, I believe. It is overall going to be a great weekend, in my opinion, because there are so many great matchups. You have the Cincinnati Bengals versus Tennessee Titans. I would favor the Tennessee Titans just because they seem to be more experienced and they may even be a little bit more talented than the Cincinnati Bengals. But I give the Cincinnati Bengals about a 40% chance. So I would not be shell shocked if somehow the Cincinnati Bengals pulled off the upset. When it comes to the LA Rams versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that probably is the closest game, in my opinion, the hardest game all in all that, in my opinion, is, going to predict. I think that really could go either way. That's a complete coin toss. And then, of course, you have the Green Bay Packers versus 49ers. And I think all in all, that's a very decent game. The San Francisco 49ers, of course, that's going to be a very decent game, I think. But I do think that the Green Bay Packers, not only with having home field advantage, but just with all around probably having the more talented team and also having home field advantage, I think that Aaron Rodgers more than likely will be able to lead the Green Bay Packers past them. But we'll see what happens. The 49ers have given the Packers a hell of a lot of problems within the past couple of years, especially in the playoffs. So we'll see all in all what happens. And then, of course, you have, debatably, actually the most exciting game of the weekend, and that is the Buffalo Bills versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And these two teams, within the past couple of years, they've pretty much been the most talented AFC rosters within that whole entire division. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see who does pull off this game. Personally, in my opinion, I am going to go with the Buffalo Bills to win this game. I do understand that they are visiting Kansas City, so it is going to be in Kansas City. But the Buffalo Bills not only have that very big win against them in the regular season, where they pretty much blew them out, but on top of that, I'm not quite sure yet if I trust Kansas City's defense. And Patrick Mahomes, even though he's looked very, very good so far, there is still certain mistakes that I see him make that once upon a time he did not make, at least not this far into the playoffs. Of course, he's very mistake prone, it seems like, in that of the Super Bowl. But when it comes down to it, usually Patrick Mahomes, was, I don't want to say invincible, but he was not nearly as mistake prone in the playoffs in the first and second round, and even in the AFC Championship, overall as he is now. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But if the Buffalo Bills and if Josh Allen are ever possibly going to make a Super Bowl, they have to get past the Kansas City Chiefs now. They just do. And this kind of reminds me of overall the Toronto Raptors when they were up against the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron James and, I believe they still had Kevin Love. It was the Toronto Raptors' time to shine. But the big question is, are the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, are they a bust like the Toronto Raptors were? Is Josh Allen another person that, maybe he can lead you somewhat far into the playoffs, but he's never going to make that Super Bowl? Maybe is he as someone like another Phillip Rivers? We'll see overall what happens. But it'll be very, very interesting. And of course, Phillip Rivers, he wasn't always known for doing super duper playoff runs, but of course he was able to make one AFC championship in his career. But this is going to be very interesting, but they're going to be talking about, and when I say they, I'm talking about two former NFL players, of course, on the sports podcast debate show, Speak for Yourself. It's going to be between Emmanuel Acho and I believe Marcellus Wiley. And they're going to be talking about who overall has more pressure on themselves within this game. Is it Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills, or is it Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs? Let's see overall what they have to say.
Who has more on the line, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes? I'm going to say Patrick Mahomes has more on the line because Patrick Mahomes is trying to build a dynasty. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are trying to do something that we haven't seen done in a while, and really only Tom Brady, before Tom Brady, Troy Aikman, etc., have accomplished in recent history. So Patrick Mahomes is trying to traverse waters that haven't been walked on frequently, if at all. More is on the line for him, but we can agree on that, I would assume. So I want to spend a little bit of time here. Josh Allen is...
What I'll say is this. I certainly understand where Emmanuel Acho is coming from, and I don't usually tend to agree with what Emmanuel Acho says. But when it comes down to it, I can certainly understand what he's saying. Because Apache, I was watching a very good channel the other day in Chronicles of Judah 144. Of course, now he has a Patreon channel. But of course, he assumed, kind of like I did at one point in time, that Patrick Mahomes, that he would at least be, maybe to a few more Super Bowls or a couple more Super Bowls, just the way that he had looked. But of course, when it comes down to it now, in terms of peak value, when you compare Patrick Mahomes to that same classic quarterback like a Russell Wilson, a Aaron Rodgers, or a Drew Brees, or a Brett Favre, or a Dan Marino, because all those Steve Young, all those quarterbacks, in my opinion, they're someone in the same league. I think that Patrick Mahomes may even have the best peak talent or overall the best peak value out of any of them. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, I believe, for 3 straight years, he won an MVP. Well, he didn't win an MVP for 3 straight years, but in 3 seasons, 3 straight seasons, he won an MVP. He won a Super Bowl. He went to 3 AFC championships, I believe. He went to 2 Super Bowls. He won a Super Bowl MVP, and I believe that he made the Pro Bowl every single year. I believe. So Patrick Mahomes, when it comes down to it, I don't know if I've ever seen another quarterback with that type of peak value within just a 3 year span. It probably is the greatest, or at least overall, the most dominant 3 year stretch that I've personally ever seen by a quarterback, just when you talk about all what he was able to accomplish. But after that, Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost in the Super Bowl. And I can't completely blame it on Patrick, but the defense was able to get to him when it came down to it. But ever since then, Patrick Mahomes does not look like the same quarterback. It almost reminds me of a former prize fighter, or a fighter all in all that once upon a time was a decently great fighter, like a Deontay Wilder. And some people may say, oh, well, Deontay was never that great. Well, he was never that multi-dimensional. But Deontay Wilder, in my opinion, still was a decently great fighter. It's like a great fighter, like when they get knocked out or stopped in boxing, especially brutally. They don't have the same confidence in their punches anymore. They bite on more feints than what they used to when it comes down to it. And on top of that, they just don't have the same punch resistance. That's exactly what Patrick Mahomes looks like to me. He looks like he looks like Deontay Wilder overall in that third Tyson Fury fight. Still very dangerous, but not the same as what I used to overall see him. It just is what it is. Or, I don't even know if I want to compare to that, because Deontay Wilder, in my opinion, he still looked very much the same actually in the third fight. It's just, I think that he looked a little bit different because of the muscle mass he gained. But I'm trying to think of a fighter to where they've been stopped and they never looked the same. Probably Kell Brook. But even Deontay Wilder, you can even argue, was never necessarily the same after that Tyson Fury second knockout, because fighters are never the same once they get knocked out like that. It just is what it is. But anyway.
Playing to figure out, is he going to be remembered and viewed as Phillip Rivers or Peyton Manning?
Hey, I agree with you. I think the overall that is a great comparison, Emmanuel Acho. That's why I brought up Phillip Rivers as well.
Not in talent, but in legacy. Phillip Rivers never went to a Super Bowl as an AFC quarterback. A great AFC quarterback, borderline Hall of Famer. Some people assume he's in, some people say he's not. Never went to a Super Bowl.
What I'll say about Phillip Rivers is this. To me, he's borderline Hall of Fame. But the NFL standards are so much higher than everybody else. I don't think I've ever seen another sport like the NFL's Hall of Fame, where their standards are so high. I mean, like if you don't have a decent amount of accomplishments, you're probably not making it in. Now there are some exceptions to the rule, maybe like a Eli Manning, but Eli Manning has won 2 Super Bowls. And then you kind of have the quarterbacks that are someone in that same league, but they never won anything, like a Matt Ryan or a Phillip Rivers. Do they make the Hall of Fame? I'm not quite so sure. You can say that it's 50-50, but if they were to be left out, I wouldn't, cry about it. It just is what it is. I don't think that it would be a complete robbery if they were left out of the Hall of Fame.
He went to an AFC championship game once. Why? Because though Phillip Rivers was really good, Peyton Manning was in the AFC and he was better. Tom Brady was in the AFC and he was better. And Ben Roethlisberger appeared in the AFC and he got his. So while Phillip Rivers was good, you had Lamar Jackson. While Phillip Rivers was good, you had Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. While Phillip Rivers was good, you had Ben Roethlisberger, Joe Burrow. So Josh Allen, though he doesn't...
Damn. He just, he said all in all that Joe Burrow maybe was ahead of Phillip Rivers or Josh Allen. At least that's what I got of it. Let me say this. Josh Allen is one of the most talented quarterbacks that I've personally ever seen. He has an excellent arm. He actually does not perform extremely bad under pressure, but he is going to have to get past him this year. It's not even really as bad if you lose in the AFC Championship, but you have to get past the Kansas City Chiefs this year. And the reason why that is because these guys are their old demons. They're basically, they're Detroit Pistons, when the Chicago Bulls were facing off against them, in the late 80s. So you have to get past them, otherwise you're just basically going to be another Phillip Rivers. I agree with Emmanuel Acho. So if Emmanuel Acho's point is that, Josh Allen, that he's just going to be another Phillip Rivers, and that's why, Patrick Mahomes, he has a higher amount of pressure on himself or more on the line in this one because, Patrick Mahomes' standards are higher. I somehow get what he's saying, but Patrick Mahomes is always going to be remembered as an all-time great quarterback. At the worst, he's going to be remembered probably as another Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. So, like I said, or Drew Brees or someone in that category, Steve Young, whoever the hell you want to compare him to, because Patrick Mahomes has already made 3 AFC championships. When it comes down to it, those quarterbacks are always somewhat still in the limelight very decently well. I mean, shit, people talk about Aaron Rodgers, being the greatest quarterback of all time. Would I overall say that? Absolutely not. Now of course Patrick Mahomes statistically he's gonna have to still keep it consistent like some of those guys. But when it comes down to it, there's people that would call Aaron Rodgers the greatest quarterback of all time, and he only made one Super Bowl and won one Super Bowl in his career. It's been about 11 years now since that happened. So it just is what it is. Josh Allen, in my opinion, has way more on the line in this game because you've never made it there before. So Josh Allen, when it comes down to it, you have around the same talent of team. You have a better defense. And on top of that, you have him right where you want him. Yes, the Kansas City Chiefs have home field advantage, but you have to take advantage of this.
Have as much on the line this weekend, he better be mindful. Because while he is good, just like Phillip Rivers is good, and I'm underselling good, we're talking about elite here. Yeah. What category do you want to fall in? Phillip Rivers never went to a Super Bowl. Josh Allen, going on year 4. Ain't been to a Super Bowl yet. It's only year.
That's why, in my opinion, Warren Moon and Phillip Rivers, now I was not really around during the Warren Moon time, but Warren Moon and Phillip Rivers, in my opinion, they're pretty much in the same category. So, in my opinion, if Warren Moon, now of course Warren Moon was an MVP, and so he was first team All Pro, I believe, maybe even a couple of times. So I would probably put Warren Moon above that of a Phillip Rivers, but they're similar. And a certain amount of people, would disagree. Like I've seen certain channels, even ones that I highly respect, they put Warren Moon on such a higher level than he really needs to be. I've already said this before. Usually when I take a look at lists, Aaron Rodgers to me is usually the most overrated quarterback that I've seen. The second most overrated quarterback, hands down, it's usually Warren Moon.
4.
Because Warren Moon, one thing I'll give Phillip Rivers credit for is this. Now maybe he had more talent at the time, I don't know. But at least he made an AFC championship. Now that's not super duper high standards. Warren Moon can never even get out of the second round. Like when you take a look at his playoff record, it's atrocious.
Patrick Mahomes has been. Josh Allen, you've been to an AFC championship game once. Joe Burrow appears to be going because he has an easier path than you. Joe Burrow just got to beat the Tennessee Titans. Allen, you got to beat the...
We'll see about that, man. We'll see. Because the Tennessee Titans, do not underestimate them. They're very talented. They're very experienced. And Ryan Tannehill, even though I would not call him an elite quarterback, he does not do bad in pressurized situations.
City Chiefs. So Josh Allen has a lot at stake too, Sel, because while he is good, Patrick Mahomes is better. While he is good, you would tell me that Justin Herbert's better. While he is good, Joe Burrow has done more, taking his team from being worse to better sooner.
I don't know if I'd go as far to say that Justin Herbert is better than Josh Allen. I would have to look at the stats, but Justin Herbert, he just hasn't accomplished anything in his career as of yet. I mean, actually, his team just missed the playoffs because of him. So, he was supposed to win that final game, I believe, against the Raiders. Justin Herbert, extremely talented, but you know what? The jury is still out on Mr. Justin Herbert, in my opinion. I'm not completely sold on him yet. The talent is there. That was never the question. But the big question is coming up in the big games. One thing I'll say about this, about Josh Allen, is this. He blew a lot of the bigger games in the season overall this season, but he really turned it around in the final 5 to 6 games. Because I believe their team overall won about 11 to 12 games. So this Buffalo Bills squad, very, very dangerous.
Josh Allen better figure out real quick. Phillip Rivers, Peyton Manning. Which line, which legacy, which mark of delineation do you want to follow?
We'll see. I don't know what happens. Maybe Josh Allen may even be greater than those two later on down the line. I highly doubt it that he'll be greater than a Peyton Manning, because Peyton Manning is an all-time great, and he's my third greatest quarterback of all time, right behind Joe Montana and Thomas Brady. But when it comes down to it, I don't know. We'll see.
Tremendous take. Man, this is one of those blocks I don't even want to talk because I just want to freeze what you just said and move on to commercial. But I need that check too. So let's go get this. Nah, in all seriousness, we agree. And I love when we agree. It's Patrick Mahomes. He has more on the line. He's accomplished more. So, yeah, there's more on the line. Patrick Mahomes is greater than Josh Allen. The conversation is going to switch from that to who's better. And then that's going to determine who's greater over time. So Patrick Mahomes is...
Of course, Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, is greater at the current moment in time. But because Patrick Mahomes already has that Super Bowl, because he already has a couple of Super Bowl appearances, he's at least overall going to get the respect, at least a little bit later on, that what a Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees or even an Eli Manning or Ben Roethlisberger was able to get. So Patrick Mahomes' greatness, in my opinion, even though certain people may try to tear it down, it's never going to be in question. But if Josh Allen ends up losing to the Kansas City Chiefs, all he's basically going to be is just another Phillip Rivers. Because if he ends up losing to them this year, barring an injury, of course, I don't see him ever getting past the Kansas City Chiefs. So you have to basically face your demons and get past them this year.
Winning in that conversation right now. Now, if we were trying to forecast and project...
Because there are certain series that I've seen in NBA basketball, or there are certain series that I've seen in NFL when it came down to it, to where if a team more than likely, beat this one team, that set up really a dynasty, or really set them up overall to get the confidence to possibly win the Super Bowl. Like imagine if the Patriots, if they somehow had not beat the Oakland Raiders, and then, of course that was a bit controversial, I believe, in that 2001 playoff game, or whenever it was, when it came down to it, or a certain amount of other things, So, like I said, this is a very, very big game for the Buffalo Bills.
Who's going to have the greater career? Y'all know me. I'm not trying to be a contrarian. I think Josh Allen. Greg Cosell goes on Colin's show every single week. Dude, I don't care what I'm doing. I am watching that segment. Greg Cosell. The way he breaks down the game, objective and just simple, right? He said it 2 years ago, and he's still saying it right now. Oh, when Josh Allen is playing at his best, he is the best in the NFL. He has the most talent. It's just that
he certainly is one of the best, no doubt about it. Josh Allen is up there with anyone in terms of talent. I mean, he might even be up there with Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. I've seen Josh Allen make some excellent throws under pressure, and I've seen him do very, 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 very well. What I'll say about Josh Allen is this. I can't necessarily get out. Like I was talking to a very good friend of mine, the main one that I talked to about NFL football, of course. And when it comes down to it, he basically was saying, well, I haven't really seen Josh Allen come up big in the big games. Well, the one thing I'll say about Josh Allen is this. He hasn't really been able to get past, the main monster. He hasn't slayed the main dragon yet. He hasn't figured that out to get past the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's why this year, when that dragon is a little bit vulnerable, and it's a little bit older, it's a little bit more weakened, and it don't have as much confidence anymore, its flame does not burn as bright, the Buffalo Bills need to take advantage, and they need to pounce on it, and they need to slay that dragon this year. And Josh Allen's going to have to perform very well in this playoff game. That's why it's so particularly interesting, in my opinion.
Simple. So I'm not going to have that conversation ad nauseum anymore. Let's talk about what Patrick Mahomes has on the line. Well, all of those awards, accolades, NFL records, Super Bowl championship, MVP, and there won't be anything to cushion his landing if he fails against the next player, Josh Allen. And it's funny you brought up all those names, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. You didn't even say Justin Herbert, and that's a wild card because he hadn't even made the playoffs yet. But Justin Herbert's like, I'm going to get mine too as well. This conversation will morph into many different ways. But when we agree, we can go here.
We'll see about that. Justin Herbert, in my opinion, he didn't necessarily show up as well as what he should have in the second half of the season. But I'll give the kid a break. I believe it's only his second professional season, and he's been able to do very, very wonderful with the LA Chargers.
You dig deeper, get to the epicenter.
Because, of course, I remember Stephen Curry, for example, in NBA basketball. I believe the first year that he made the playoffs, when it came down to it, he, of course, was not able to beat, I believe, even the, what the hell were they? I think the LA Clippers, when it came down to it. That was with the CP3, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan team. Steph Curry overall was not even able to get past them, and I think he lost in the 7-game series. Then the next year, I believe they win in the first round. They go to the second round, give the Spurs a hell of a run in 6 games. And then, of course, a couple of years after that, Stephen Curry was able to win, a few championships. Of course, one by himself, or not by himself, but, with Klay Thompson, Draymond, and then, a couple other ones with Kevin Durant, of course, the second fiddle.
This situation. This is a scary moment if you're Patrick Mahomes. You remember when Usain Bolt was retiring, or people were starting to whisper to Yale he needs to retire? And you were like, why? He hasn't lost. And you were like, yeah, but in track and field, like also basketball, people don't just have smooth landings. They fall off cliffs, right? And no one wanted to see Usain Bolt fall off a cliff. But if you watch kind of closely, you saw him fall, right? This is a moment for Patrick Mahomes. If he fails against Josh Allen, for people to now look at this season a little more closely. And they're going to say, hey, all of that bad mechanics and that regression.
What I'll say is this: if Patrick Mahomes loses this game, I'm not really going to count it as him falling off a cliff. But what I will say is that it's not up to his standards of that 3-year season. But that 3 years, those 3 years. But those 3 years, like I said, they might be the greatest 3 years that I've ever seen by a professional quarterback ever.
And him looking not the same in the middle of the season. will be highlighted. All of a sudden, you will look at him and just say, one Super Bowl ring, but you have the most regular season wins. You guys have the most postseason wins. And all of a sudden,
That's why, in my opinion, when it comes down, and like I said, I always talk to my one very good friend about, the National Football League, NFL, American football, and we always talk about Peyton Manning because he always tries to put Peyton Manning above Joe Montana. And, he can basically say, or what he says is that, well, one Super Bowl doesn't, affect, or, it doesn't just, define, a 16-year career. Well, like I said, it's like this for me. No, it doesn't define your whole entire career. Like if we take a look at Tom Brady, if I was just going to cherry pick certain points, and if I was just going to say, yeah, well, Tom Brady's great, but he lost 3 Super Bowls, so you know what, not that great, then of course that would be a complete ludicrous point, because he's won to 10 Super Bowls and he's won 70% of them. So there's only so much shit you can talk about someone like a Tom Brady, who's so accomplished and so far ahead of everyone else, at least at the quarterback position, in terms of accomplishments, especially in Super Bowls. There's only so much shit you can talk about a Tom Brady. But if you're someone like a Peyton Manning or an Aaron Rodgers or a Brett Favre, and you're known overall for throwing away certain playoff games or not performing up to par as what you need to, and your standards lower, basically compared to what they are in the regular season or other playoff games, you have to be remembered for that. It just is what it is. It's whatever. If you're a person that repeatedly cannot get back, past the hump, it's more than likely because, you were not great enough. It just is what it is. It's the same thing in basketball. DeMar DeRozan. I can sit here and say, oh, well, yeah, he got exited, but that doesn't define him, completely. Yeah, it does. It just is, or I'm not going to say it defines him completely. DeMar is a very, talented basketball player. But when I take a look at DeMar DeRozan, I see no one else but a person all in all that is never going to win anything. Unless he's sitting on the bench or unless he's 4th or 5th fiddle. It just is what it is.
Achievement. We'll start.
Like I said, we can take a look at Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins, for example. I can say, oh, well, take a look at his stats. Him losing all those games doesn't really define Kirk Cousins. I mean, we can make up all this bullshit all we want to. But at the end of the day, what you repeatedly do is somewhat what you are. It just is what it is.
To look like underachievement. So who has more on the line? The guy that's carrying more. Patrick Mahomes. But Josh Allen has to be mindful of this. If Josh Allen does lose to Patrick Mahomes, then don't even speak of me in the same breath. Like if I'm Patrick Mahomes, don't do that.
I would agree.
You have to. Why? Now, it's not.
No, I agree that you do have to. I agree. It was like the comparisons with Russell Wilson and Cam Newton. Cam Newton finally was able to get over the hump a little bit and was able to, get to the Super Bowl and beat the Seattle Seahawks once in the playoffs. But 90% of the time, Russell Wilson would always beat Cam Newton in those games because he was just better. He was smarter. And the teams, even when they were similarly talented, Russell Wilson was just a better quarterback. He would usually just perform a little bit better. And Russell's not always a person that performs extremely well in playoff games either. But when it comes down to it, like I said, no, I agree with exactly what Emmanuel Acho just said there. If I had the mindset and if I lost to Patrick Mahomes, that's exactly what I would be thinking.
No, it's not a conversation. It's not a rivalry. No, you're my little.
No, I agree with you 100%. I agree with you.
Brother, here's what I mean. So,
because how the hell can it be a rivalry when basically you're at your worst point and you couldn't even beat him then? It just is what it is. Like I don't really even know how to compare it. Like it's like I don't even want to say Patrick Mahomes when he lost to Tom Brady last year because they were both quite talented, but it's basically like if God, I don't even know what to compare it to. Almost like when Timothy Bradley lost to Manny Pacquiao for the 3rd time. You know what I mean? Like Pacquiao was a bit older when it came down to it, and he kind of lost to Mayweather, I believe, at that point. Timothy Bradley had a new trainer. Timothy Bradley, of course, got that really big robbery in the first fight. And then, of course, in the second fight, Manny Pacquiao was able to clearly beat him again. And in the third fight, it was even more clear than the first two. So, like, you can't even claim that it was a rivalry.
Only 4 times in NFL history, this is a 4th, if 2 quarterbacks had multiple playoff meetings within their first 5 years. You got John Elway, Bernie Kosar. We talk about Elway like this. We talk about Kosar like that. You got Dan Marino and David Krieg. We talk about Dan Marino like this. We don't talk about the other guy. I was like, who? You got Russell Wilson and Cam Newton. We talk about Russell Wilson like this.
That's a great comparison, sir. That's exactly overall why I mentioned that.
And we talk about Cam Newton like this. When talking about Cam Newton highs, we bring him there. But in all honesty, we talk about Russ like this and
exactly.
Cam like that. If Patrick Mahomes wins again, Patrick Mahomes will be Russ, and Josh Allen will be Cam.
I agree. Great statement, sir. I agree with you 100%. You know, you're on fire right now, Mr. Acho.
Patrick Mahomes would be Elway, and Josh Allen would be Kozar. Patrick Mahomes will be Marino, and Josh Allen will be that other dude. So all I'm saying is Josh Allen got to get his too now, big bro. He got to get his now.
And that's why, in my opinion, Josh Allen has more on the line here. Because Patrick Mahomes is already accomplished. I understand that it seems like he has more on the line because, you know, he has the high expectations. I think it would be a little bit different maybe if Patrick Mahomes or someone like a Tom Brady or a Michael Jordan. But, you know, but of course, maybe certain people may even disagree at that point. Listen, I understand that point. I certainly do. But Josh Allen, in my opinion, no, he certainly has more pressure on him in this game. And he's going to have to show up.
First of all, we don't know what Josh Allen going to get or not. So don't put a cap on him. No glass ceilings around here. Bernie Kosar never finished it. So we don't know what Josh Allen's going to do. But this early, you're going to already hit the gavel? Already place the judgment? Hell no. You know why? Because what if Patrick Mahomes goes to the Super Bowl again and doesn't score a touchdown? What if he goes, he has to see Aaron Rodgers, he has to see Tom Brady, whoever, maybe you can say Matthew Stafford, and he falls short? We ain't going to trip and give him all that love. Jim Kelly, I'm sorry to say this. All that.
Yes, but here's the problem. If Josh Allen, when it comes to, and I understand what he's saying, but if you're just comparing Patrick Mahomes to Josh Allen, it's not going to be a good look if Josh Allen loses to probably the worst version of the Kansas City Chiefs that they've seen within the past few years. And all in all, Patrick Mahomes does go to the Super Bowl, and he has a shit performance, pretty much like what he did last year. I'm not going to say that it was a complete shit performance because that defense was on his ass. I'll give him a little bit of a break. But when it comes down to it, you know, he just doesn't perform well, you know, or he performs like a John Elway in one of those Super Bowls that he lost. So like I said, you know, no, Josh Allen, he needs to show up.
Go to the Super Bowl but lose?
You know what? Actually, this is a very good comparison. This is almost like Vasily Lomachenko in his next big fight. We take a look at you and we basically say, okay, you know what? We know that you're a great talent. You know, and in my opinion, Vasily Lomachenko, he's greater for his job than what Josh Allen is probably for his, just because he's more proven. But Vasily Lomachenko, if he gets in one of those Series A great fights next, whether it be George Kambosos or whether it be, you know, Devonta Tank Davis, Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney, everyone's going to be looking at him and saying, okay, are you a real deal? You know, we all know that you're a great talent. We all know that you are a real deal fighter. But how great are you? You know, are you an all-time great? Or are you just another Guillermo Rigondeaux?
That puts a limit on you. So it's not just about beating Josh Allen and the son and him. It's about you conquering once again if you're Patrick Mahomes. One thing we've done this week, we've created segments out of this talking in our banter. Because you said Russell Wilson over Cam Newton. Whose career would you rather have, Russell Wilson's or Cam Newton? We're going to have that. Does it come with the off the field? It comes as it. Who would you rather be?
Easy work. That's Russell Wilson's career, no doubt about it. I mean, Super Bowl champion, 2 Super Bowl appearances, you know, easy. Russell Wilson.
Cam Newton or Russell Wilson? I knew it.
But anyways, I thought that was a very interesting conversation. We'll see all in all what Mr. Josh Allen does this weekend overall against the Patrick Mahomes-led Kansas City Chiefs. I'm very excited for this matchup. And I will personally be rooting for the Buffalo Bills this weekend because I'm really hoping that Josh Allen, with all his talents that I just personally see, that he's able to get past the hump. But just like Emmanuel Acho said, he may just be, you know, another Phillip Rivers. Someone who is very highly talented, but, you know, often cannot get past the hump. So we'll see what happens. But when I take a look at Josh Allen, he looks extremely, extremely talented. And it even looks like he has more confidence than what I've seen from a Phillip Rivers or other past quarterbacks, maybe like a Warren Moon, you know, when they would usually fuck up in playoff games. But that'll be the question about Josh Allen. You know, at the end of his career, if he's even consistently going to be able to, you know, do things, you know, good statistically, which I think he will. I think he proved to us this season that he was able to bounce back actually very decently well. But that's the big question. Are you going to be another Phillip Rivers or Warren Moon? Or overall, are you at least going to be in that somewhat of a Aaron Rodgers, Steve Young, Russell Wilson category? You know, or maybe, you know, at least a person that at least makes the Super Bowl. All right? So we'll see what happens. But anyways, that's really about it for today. I forgot overall that the video is pretty much over. But anyways, that's pretty much all I got for today. But we'll see y'all know who wins this game, and I'll talk to y'all later.